All right, good morning to you. It's Thursday, and it's going to be my last day of work for the week, and so that always makes me happy and looking forward to the weekend and what we're ushering in. So last night we had a great day yesterday. I caught up with an old friend yesterday and spent some time with them, and then the Tamster and I hung out, went to dinner, celebrated 43 years of just dealing with marriage and life and love and just kind of reminiscing about really the blessings of God in that arena. And so it was a great day yesterday. And man, I'm looking forward now to just jumping in some truth with you and seeing what we can discover. So today, I've titled this "A Call for Dads to Step It Up." And it is true that that dads are the primary uh, one who's charged with raising children, rearing them rather. But the mom plays a part too. I don't want to mistake that, but sometimes I think we tend to think that's the mom's job, and the dad just kind of provides the cash and stuff like that. And so the scriptures don't speak to that in that regard. And so that's what we're looking at. So we are in this series in Colossians. Really, he's demonstrating what does it look like when people have gotten into their wheelhouse, the 7 attitudes that he speaks of in the fact that we're chosen people of God, and what these attitudes ought to be in light of the fact that we keep our minds seated in heaven, we get our hearts there, that we let the word of Christ richly dwell within us. When those things happen, it transforms the Christ follower. When you punch sin in the face and you put to death the old man, you seek hard to put on the new man. You develop these 7 attitudes. You think heaven-mindedly. Your heart is connected to heaven. There's this vitality and relationship of knowing that that's my home and Christ is there, and all of those things. It dictates how we respond. And so he begins by talking about what it looks like in the family. And so we've seen that. Let me just remind you of these qualities. He says in verse 12 of chapter 3, "Therefore, as God's chosen people, holy and dearly loved, clothe yourselves with compassion." That is, that we see people, right? We wear compassion. That is, as we walk through this life, we see people. We sympathize with those. We empathize with those we can. And then we put the legs of kindness to work, and we seek to just encourage, warn, meet needs, whatever that is. We encourage through after that compassion. And then we're humble people. We don't look down on people. We don't think ourselves better than others. We also don't think ourselves less of others. We just focus on others. We regard others as more important than ourselves. And so as we walk through this life, we're seeing needs. We are bringing kindness to those needs. We are being careful that we stay humble and don't get proud. That's kind of how Paul told it to the Galatian church. But to the Colossians, he speaks of humility. Be gentle. That is, that we're going to rein in our emotions. We're not just going to go crazy in anger and all of those things. We're going to rein those in. We're going to be gentle people. We're not going to be harsh. We're not just going to, well, I just tell it like it is. We'll stop it, right? I mean, we're not that. You can tell it like it is with compassion, but not harsh and brutal and arrogant and all of those things. And that's what he's speaking of. And we're going to be patient. We're going to be patient with life circumstances that come at us. We can't control some of those. And when they do, we're going to be unmoved by them. We're going to believe that God of all creation is causing all things to work together for good to those that love him, are called according to his purpose. We're also going to forbear. I can't really control what other people do. I can only control how I respond to what other people do. But I'm going to be unmoved by what people do in my life in that sense. I won't let them dictate how I respond to things. It's the one thing I can control. I can't control what others do to me, but I can control how I respond to what others do to me. And then he says forgiving. That's that concept that you and me should constantly be quick to forgive, because the Lord has forgiven us of everything as well. So it's not ours to seek vengeance. That belongs exclusively to the Lord. Mine is to forgive my enemies, to love them, to do good to them. And so that's what it is. And then Paul says, and you wrap all of that, verse 14, and over all those virtues, put on love. Now, what does that look like when we bring it into the family? And this is where we've been looking for the past several days, right? Wives, what does it look like for a wife to wear those attitudes and to have that mindset? Well, she's going to be submissive to her husband because it's fitting in the Lord. And so she's going to line up under him. She's going to be obedient in that sense. However you take that, you can take that in some chauvinistic sense or whatever you want. It's just scripture. That doesn't mean that you're not equal in status with your husband. Doesn't mean that any of that. It has to do with order, and that's the place that God has allotted for you. And so a godly woman will be submissive, and she will be obedient, and she will seek to please her husband. That's what that means. And then her husband, what does it look like for a husband to demonstrate these attitudes in their wheelhouse and to put off the old man and to wrap everything in love? It means that he's going to love his wife, that he will sacrifice for her, that he will seek to do what's best for her, to bring her to holiness and purity. He will cherish her. These are the things that he does, and he won't be harsh. He's not gonna treat her like he would his buddies at work. He's going to treat her in a delicate fashion. Don't be harsh with them. So then what does it look like for children who develop these attitudes and have self-control? How will they respond? Well, they will obey their parents in everything. In everything. They're gonna obey. And we have to teach that self-control. That's one of the things that moms and dads should be doing, is teaching self-control. And that means that, certain things should be going on in the house. You should teach them how to think, right? You should teach them how to make their bed, do the chores, all of those things. You should make them say please and thank you. Down here in the South, we say yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, and no ma'am. I realize some people think that's sarcastic. Not in my home. It's a statement of honor. It always signifies that those people deserve my respect. So we hold that here. And it's still my custom to speak to people in yes ma'am and no ma'am. Anybody older than me, they're always going to get that. And so those are the things that we want to do. So today he says, fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged. So let's just talk about that. Fathers. He says fathers, pateros. That is male. That is a masculine noun. It can mean immediate father. In certain contexts, it means ancestors, right? My forefathers, or in days past, our fathers said this, right? And so we would be speaking of maybe grandparents and other things. There is occasion where it could mean really just your ancestors, and you might lump in wives and mothers in there with it. But this word here, he puts the emphasis and inference on dad. And so I'm not saying that mothers are excluded from that. I'm just simply saying he's addressing dads. And dads and moms work together as a team. They're one flesh. And so this should happen. So the women aren't off the hook. I just wanted to emphasize that men definitely aren't off the hook. So don't relegate this role to your wife. And this is what needs to be reminded of. And so he says, don't embitter. So fathers, don't embitter your children. That is to arouse anger. It is to stir up. These are words that you can find in different translations, to provoke, to exasperate, to irritate, right? Don't do that. Why? Because they'll become discouraged. And so this is the basis of what he's saying to do. So practically, what does that look like? Well, we go to Ephesians. I told you Ephesians, he sometimes gives a little deeper explanatory aspect of what that looks like than does he in Colossians. In Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4, he says, fathers, do not exasperate your children. Same word. Don't arouse anger. Don't stir them up. Don't provoke them. Don't exasperate them like what it says here. Don't irritate them. Instead of doing those things, bring them up, train them in the training and instruction of the Lord. And so that's the context there. To train them. We'll talk about that at the end of what it looks like to have biblical disciplines. That's what it means to train them. Teach them how to pray. Teach them how to study. Teach them how to serve. Admonitions are warnings, teaching them right from wrong, pushing them toward principles that are right, warning them about principles that are wrong. But so in light of that, what does that look like? Practically speaking, what does this mean? Well, I'm going to give you kind of my top 9, 10 things that I think will help us kind of work through these things. And so we're just going to jump into these, and you'll find the roots of them in the scriptures. But we should be a good example of self-control, right? If we are expecting self-control in our kids, we should have already reined in our control, right? So to be a good dad, demonstrate some self-control. You don't have the right to just explode on your kids because you had a bad day or because you're impatient with them. They are your children. You have one responsibility with them, that is to raise them up in the fear and admonition of the Lord, and do it in a way that doesn't provoke them, that doesn't irritate them, that doesn't create a stumbling block in them. And so, we should just simply ask ourselves, okay, where in my life do I lack self-control? And I need to rein that in. Is it my anger? Is it my addictions? Is it my sinful habits? Is it my condescension? What is it that's out of balance in my life that I might need to rein these things in? Is it my humor? Is it my sometimes because dad jokes and all that. But whatever it is, right? And then the second thing that is helpful as we bring our children up and as we don't exasperate them is that we teach them how to think. This is crucial piece that I think dads don't always do. We too many dads move into the because I said so realm. And that is the most terrible parenting mantra that I could ever think of. To constantly be telling your kids because I said so is intentionally keeping them foolish because you're not helping them reason why what you're saying is a wise thing to do. That may work briefly early on, but the reasoning skills of a 4 or 5-year-old and all of that no longer allows that as a statement at all. If you say stop doing that, give the reason why. Take the initiative. Give the reason why. Nothing will provoke a child more than simply to be told because I said so, right? I mean, that's like, because ingrained in them is a bit of rebellion. And so when you give them reasoning, you help them understand not just why you do what you do, but why there are rules in other places that there are. And so that's one of the crucial things is just to teach them how to think, right? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. It's imperative that you and me, because how a child thinks will affect the attitude which they see life, whether they're going to have an upbeat attitude, a positive attitude, a serving attitude, a loving attitude, a joyful attitude. How you think will do that. If you raise a kid who thinks that is a victim in life, this is what we see today. Everyone sees themselves as a victim. That's why our world is as screwed up as it is, one piece of why it is. And so don't let that happen. Don't do that. Help your kids learn how to think because it affects their attitude. And the attitude always dictates behavior. So it's important that we do that. I say the third thing that we should do is that we should listen to them. Don't shut them down when they're talking. Man, I can remember in my younger days, my kids do something wrong. And, but Dad, wait, let me tell you. And in my mind, I'd already figured out what was wrong. We're wasting time. Let me just bust your rump and let's move on, right? No, you should listen to them. Let them speak what is in their heart because you learn something when they do that. You learn their reasoning faculties and maybe their lack of logic, and you can help them. And so instead of just assuming that beating kids, I say that loosely, you understand, is going to fix them, reasoning helps them even more. It gives them a basis for life, right? And so I'm not saying that there's no place for the discipline, but part of that discipline is in listening to them. Don't shut them down. You exasperate them when they do that. Nobody likes to be shut down. That's one of the fundamental values of our country that we held at one time was free speech. That I should be able to speak whatever I think about. And that should be it's a basic right that we have, not to be shut down. Give that to your children, right? Listen to them. You learn something. Just for food for thought. Number 4, don't parent in a shame-based way. Listen, stop it with the shame kind of thing. I can't believe you did that. I'm so embarrassed. No, that's provoking your children. That's creating all kind of issues. That's not how you parent. And man, we could talk for days on these things, but I'm just trying to give you some food for thought as we look at this. Be consistent. Man, nothing is worse than the inconsistency of what happens in life. Yesterday, the kid got away with something. Today, you just grounded them for life, and so they're like unsure now at this point. They're not clear on the rules because neither are you, and you're letting your rules dictate you based on your emotion and how you see things. It's the lowest level of leadership that you can have. Develop principles and work from that, and be consistent with those principles. One of the ones that we had in our home was our kids weren't going to dishonor the wife that God had given to me. I would not let them backtalk their mother, talk bad about their mother. It's just not going to happen. And you can ask my kids. I was as consistent as could be on that. There was a lot of things I could let slide, but not that. My kids knew that. And so there's certain, there were more, but that's just one that comes to mind. Number 6, know the difference between childishness and rebellion, right? Look, kids are going to be kids. They're going to do stupid things. They're going to leave something out that you told them to put up, and they may have left it out 3-4 times. That's childishness. That's where training comes in. That's where education. That's where helping them think comes in. That's not rebellion. So don't treat it like it's rebellion and beat them because they didn't do that. Just understand the difference. There's childish things, and then there's rebellion. Lying is a form of rebellion. That's not childishness. That's rebellion. If my kids would know, my little mantra for them was, if you lie, you'll steal. If you'll steal, you'll kill. And I'm not having that in my household. Honesty matters. That's rebellion. You have to deal with that. You have to deal with lying. And defiance. That's also rebellion. And you see it. But just childish mistakes, spilling your milk. Come on. Let's just lighten up on that. That's provoking when you do those things. Number 7, don't bring up their past, right? Don't always remind them. You always do that. You've always been that way. No, that's a terrible statement. One of the things I wanted instilled in all of our kids was up until now. It's a great statement. We said it probably so much, Jackson was like, I know, up until now, right? Because I can't do that. Well, come on. Up until now, you haven't been able to do that. It's a game changer. And so don't stereotype your kids and put a label on them that has something to do with their past. You don't want it in your life. Don't put it in your kids' lives. One of the others is building a trusted friendship with your kids. That's a crucial piece. One of the goals of my life is to be a trusted friend to my children. Now, don't try to be a best friend to your kids. That's kind of weird, because then you start looking silly. Moms start dressing like their daughters, and dads try to look all hip and cool, and it's just silly. But you want to be their trusted friend. That is, you're their go-to person whenever life's in trouble. They go, I just need that friend, right? Be that one. Be that one. Be a trusted friend to your kids. Teach them the ways of the Lord. That's a part of not provoking, because you're teaching. And this is where we looked at a minute ago. What does that look like? What does it mean to raise them up in the fear and admonition of the Lord? To bring them up in the training rather than the fear and instruction of the Lord. That's the better terms. Well, teach them how to pray. Come on. Go in that bedroom. Pray with them. Teach them how to pray. Ask them to pray over the meal. They're not going to want to do those things, but teach them how to do that. Teach them how to study the Bible. Don't just quote it. Show them what it means and how to understand it. That's your job, Dad. Do these things, right? Serve. Teach them how to serve. What does it mean to serve? The greatest thing my dad ever did was taught me that one principle. Man, I knew if there was a car on the side of the road, we were going to pull over because Dad was going to help them. And anytime somebody had a need in the church or wherever, I'd watch my dad have a conversation with my mom, and together they'd figure it out. He'd give her the money, and she'd do the act, right? And that's just the way things were in our household, and it's powerful. That's great teaching. Do those, model those things. And then the admonition of the Lord is that is teach them right from wrong and why this is right and that is wrong. That's your job to teach them. Your job. Teach them right from wrong. Don't let the school do that. Don't let church do that. That's your job. Teach them right and wrong. Teach them warnings. Teach them encouragements. What the Word says to do that brings blessing. What the Word says don't do because it doesn't bring blessing, right? That's what we're looking at. And, man, to not do this, man, reminds me of Judges 2:10. And that whole generation had been gathered to their ancestors. After this generation passed away, another generation grew up who knew neither the Lord nor what he had done for Israel. God forbid that we would raise another generation that doesn't know anything about these things. It's your job. You're the last line of defense in this next generation. It's your role. Lord bless you guys. Can't wait to see you in the morning, and we'll jump into some more truth. Have a great day.